Welcome to the T-Pac Arcade. Today's game is Slap Fight for the Sega Mega Drive. In this 1993 shoot-'em-up from Toaplan, with a 2025 licensed re-release by Retrobit, you pilot the starship Leopard to destroy Gowdy, a universe-engulfing AI. So in Slap Fight, there is a lot of fighting, but not a lot of slapping, so I don't really know where the title comes from. Anyway, this is a port of the 1986 arcade game, and it really shows those 80s shooter roots. Rather than being divided into distinct stages, Slap Fight is a continuous run through nearly 100 bite-sized areas, all populated with slight variations on your standard fixed and roaming turret enemies. You'll face a big angry inkjet printer on a massive landing strip, tin cans that self-destruct as they peek through windows in a giant array of hamster tubes, robo-crabs that do nothing but walk sideways in a desert, little blue rail cars that take 2 hits to destroy, but will fall into the abyss if you blow up part of their tracks, a huge googly-eyed robot face that's impossible to take seriously with its missile teeth and funny-looking circuit board brain encased in glass, more blue rail cars that can't help but create traffic jams in a convoluted space highway, a starship whose wings detach to flank your fighter craft and try to zap you with an electric beam, which, to be honest, is as cool as it is dangerous, and of course, the AI Gowdy, which seems to be that silly googly-eyed robot's brain, but without the silly googly-eyed robot's face. Aw, I kinda miss that guy. It may sound like a lot to deal with, but you've got plenty of weapons to deal with it. What? So your arsenal is displayed in a stack at the right-hand side of the screen. You can activate whichever upgrade is currently highlighted, and collecting stars from defeated enemies cycles your options down the stack. At least 2 speed-ups are mandatory for dodging enemy bullets. Shot is your standard blaster, which is actually the best weapon against bosses because its fire is so concentrated. Side sends lateral energy pulses from your ship to attack enemies at the right and left. And wing is this game's main gimmick, because you can basically just keep extending the wings on your ship to widen your firing range until you take up like 5.5 parking spaces. Problem is, the extra width never lasts long because you become such a massive target that those wings are bound to break off in short order. At least they can take some enemies with them sometimes as they detonate. And as alternatives to the standard shot, you can also equip bombs, which are powerful but short range and slow firing, laser, which honestly isn't much different from the regular cannon, and homing missiles, which are the best weapon in the game because they lock onto enemies so you can just focus on dodging. There's also a shield upgrade that lets you take 3 hits before blowing up, and you can tell how many hits you've got left by how aggressively your ship blinks, like a broken light fixture that's slowly giving up hope. Lovely. Unfortunately, there's no slap weapon, in spite of the game's title. Can you imagine a shoot-'em-up where your ship has a pair of hands and fancy white gloves that attacks everything by smacking them across the face? I'd pay good money to play that version of Slap Fight. Speaking of which, this cartridge does actually include 2 versions of the game, the standard arcade port and Slap Fight Special, or Slap Fight MD, with altered graphics and levels, plus a sort of smart bomb auxiliary attack that you can use once per life. I actually prefer the graphics of this special version because they're a bit more regal space industrial rather than military space utilitarian, if that makes any sense at all. But either way, I have to admit that Slap Fight's visuals are a bit more substance over style. Like, you've got the necessary space shooter ingredients here, sci-fi fighter craft, cosmic and mechanical backdrops, explosions and lasers, but none of it seems to have much personality. I do love the sound design though. The chiptunes have such a crazy range, from heroic high-octane tracks to, mystic fantasy harp scales. I don't know, but I'm here for it. And of course, I can never get enough garbled digitized voice samples whenever you equip a weapon or encounter a boss ship. As far as difficulty goes, Slap Fight suffers from the classic shoot-'em-up challenge problem. If you've got good power-ups, you're unstoppable, but as soon as you die and respawn with nothing but the standard shot, you're toast. Luckily, Slap Fight does offer an easy mode, unlimited continues, and a ton of checkpoints. So for both versions of the game, I was able to coast through the first 75% with homing missiles and shields, then brute force my way through the final stretch by credit feeding. The only problem with the way credit feeding works here is that sometimes you end up skipping past game content if you die near the next checkpoint and respawn ahead of where you actually were. Overall, Slap Fight can be a steep learning curve at the beginning, but it's well worth the effort, especially since there are 2 great game modes to enjoy, even if only one of them has our favorite silly googly-eyed robot face guy. And in spite of the title, you'll have to defeat all threats to the cosmos with bombs and missiles instead of slaps across the face.